The Walking Dead is back, and everyone is still reeling from their last encounter with the Whisperers. But more importantly, the show is really starting to embrace what it's like to live in a post-apocalyptic world. And our characters are asking the really important questions. Who are they? And what kind of civilization do they want to be? It's the Season 10 premiere of The Walking Dead. Episode 1, Lines We Cross. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to the return of The Walking Dead. So yes, of course, tons of spoilers coming your way. And do want to tell you about our quick dump index system. Just take a look down in the description below. We'll have this entire review titleized, codified, time-stamped. You can watch the end of the review first. You can watch the beginning last. You can watch this review in any order you'd like. All right, so very excited, actually, to be coming into this new season of The Walking Dead. Look, it's been 10 years. There are tons of stories. There have been tons of changes. We have characters coming in, characters coming out. We've lost Rick. We lost Carl. I mean, big changes. But you know, I have to say, I've been kind of excited about this season coming in. I've been trying to re-embrace the show. I know there's, like I said, there's been a lot of ups and downs. There's been a lot of feedback that we've had, some things that haven't totally worked. But you know, to be honest, I love the characters. I love the show. I love the world that they have sort of created. So I'm really trying to walk into this season with a very positive, expectant viewpoint. And I have to say, I think this season premiere really satisfied in a lot of different ways. Now, one thing I was talking about in the beginning is that embrace of the post-apocalyptic world. And now that we're so many years that we've done that time jump, seeing that we don't deal with the whole car situation, where's the gas coming from? We don't have all of the guns and wondering where the bullets are coming from. It's getting the show really to feel like, I mean, almost a Western feel with the horses and the running. I mean, when they go out to do the search for the Whisperers there and to see if they can find any clues on them. I mean, that's a great classic Western romp of the horses going out. You got your group of 6 and then the 2 peel off and the 1 goes forward. I mean, really a very cool kind of world that they're starting to embrace. And we're, by getting rid of all of that technology, or the majority of it, we don't have those, like I say, recurring questions of how does this stuff last? How are they finding all this stuff? How many resources are they going in? I think they're really embracing this potential world here without having really any of this stuff. Or the few bits of technology you do find are really valuable, which of course is Eugene's whole reason for going up the satellite there towards the end. So yeah, I mean, again, I felt that the show is really going forward, and I thought that we had a good reaction to the really tragic circumstances of last season, of the beheadings and even that sort of odd one-off season finale, which again kind of felt like a season premiere and a finale all in one. With the snow and the fall of the kingdom and having all these groups starting to come together. The intensity of this reaction, of the loss and the fear and the bits of PTSD. You have some people that are just trying to move on, and some that are seriously, Carol especially, reacted off of what the Whisperers have done. I think has been a really cool, interesting setup. But also I really appreciate the bigger questions they're starting to ask. When Aaron is talking to Michonne and asking, like, are we really the good guys? I mean, that's a good question. He brings up a great point. We are the villains to someone else's storyline. We're always the good guys in our own storyline. But he's acknowledging that he could be the villain of somebody else's. And again, asking the bigger questions. Who are they? What is it that makes them? Are they just surviving, as Daryl is thinking, trying to survive from one fight to the next? Or is there a larger picture that they want? Which is, again, something else that Daryl and Carol kind of get in their very cool one-off discussion there about running away and, of course, being pirates. You can't go wrong with being pirates, right? I mean, that's always a plus. So I like where they're going with this. And again, I mean, as an episode, your first, the first of the season is always set up. This is always setting up the chess pieces. I say this all the time. This first episode, where are people now? Where have they reacted off of the end of the last season they've seen? Where are they going to be prepared for the next adventure that's coming ahead? And they did an interesting way of doing that with the constant flashbacks of the satellite coming down and the radio call about finding the mask and using that as a junction point to tell kind of three different tales. It does make things feel a little disjointed, I think, because we get stuff going and then we jump back and then we retell another thing and then we jump back. So it can be a little throwing off, but I think it did a good job of just establishing where our characters are, how they are feeling about everything that has gone on, and I think really setting things up for how they're going to deal with their inevitable next encounter with the Whispers. All right, we're going to do things a little differently now. We're going to kick off this review with our Scene of the Week for this week. And we're doing it because it is our opening scene back at Oceanside with Training Day. Beautiful way to open things up. I'm a big fan of starting things off with a bang, pulling the audience in and getting them right into the mode of where we are going. And I think the Training Day scene did that perfectly. I mean, first off, yay, they're training. You're getting everyone going. They are really preparing themselves for an eventual war, which is really something that we haven't seen. And also, they're doing it literal old school style. They've got shields, they've got spears, they've got bows and arrows, they've got blunt weapons, they've got sharp weapons, swords, hammers, bashing, all sorts of great stuff. Again, really pulling us into this post-apocalyptic world. And the reality of not having all of the guns and bullets and everything that we have had for so many years. So it's a great visual change for the combat style we get to see moving forward. And I loved how they established it. I love how they have their groups, and they've really done their training plan, how they have Jerry and Ezekiel coming up to the ship that's come upside. I mean, again, where all these came from? Did this all recently come up? Has this ship of waterlogged walkers been around? Who cares? Doesn't matter. It just works great for the scene. And they're showing how they're working all of this training, and it's done great. Again, you have Jerry and Ezekiel come up, they open the door, let some out, close it down, and then you have each set of troops kind of working on their stuff. You have the shields with the spikes to keep everyone away. They drop down, arrows come out, drop them down. Then when they slowly start to move forward, I love them recovering the arrows on the battlefield. Again, you have to conserve these very important resources. You let the other group in, then they do another set of training of throwing the spears and stuff. And kind of a waste of weapons and so on, but okay. The phalanx maneuver. So perfect for this world and dealing with walkers when you have all of the shields overlapping each other, so you keep a force from coming in, and then you can stab your spears through the shields between them, protect your people up in front, and still do damage behind. I mean, it's a brilliant choice of classic battle tactics. And it was really great to see. Even when they sort of broke up and everything came down, great, you've got to deal with a new thing. The wall has collapsed and everyone's set off into their own individual stuff, and you can, defend smaller groups. I think it was a great way to establish where everybody is, that the training is important, that they have embraced this whole new world, a new way of having to fight, of having to adjust. And strangely enough, the new way is a very old way. But I thought that they handled that beautifully. And like I said, it really set the tone, I think, for the episode and the season, that these people aren't fooling around anymore. They're not sitting on their laurels. They're not just freaking out, oh my God, what's going to happen? They're preparing themselves. They're actively engaging with the world around them. And it's a great thing to see with the show. And I think the perfect way to start out both the episode and the season. And of course, the meat of the episode comes once they find the mask that Judith and RJ found while playing down at the river, found the mask for the Whispers, and the concern, are they back? We haven't seen them for a while. We know from the end of last season that the Whispers ended up heading south, and we're starting to create their own plans of their own to once they came back. But of course, for our groups, they have no idea what's going on. So this was a great kind of idea to put everyone on edge. Now that we've got our training, now they may need to start to apply it. And through this, we get to see everybody's real reactions from the potential threat of a return for the Whisperers. For some, like Aaron, highly cautionary. And I have to agree with him on that. Close your thing up, keep an eye out. I mean, it might be an overreaction, but for Aaron, that sort of makes sense. He has lost a lot, as he has said. And maybe driving a little too far. Him running up on the bridge, crazy going after the walkers, not really thought through. And whenever you don't think things through, that's when mistakes can happen. When walkers can get close, when you get your leg grabbed, when you definitely always need a partner. Don't go out there alone. But I agree, but he's really showing that kind of strong panic reaction off of the idea. Michonne, kind of going a bit in the other direction. A little more cautionary. Let's not jump in. Let's not freak out. Let's not cause a panic amongst everyone else. And sort of between the two of these, we are seeing, again, a lot of the attempts to kind of deal with the idea. How far do you go? How cautious are you? You don't want to just see a sign and let that fall to the wayside, but you don't want to necessarily go into a whole panic mode if this is some old thing that sort of drifted down. So it's good that we're getting these two variances from reactions. But of course, also, the Whisperers have a lot of, that encounter has left everyone with a little bit of PTSD as well. And I think Carol is kind of our big reaction off of that. Why has she been gone so long? Why has she been out on a boat? First off, she's being a pirate, so there's nothing wrong with that, right? Doing some deep fishing, sleeping out under the stars on a boat. Seems to be a nice little world for her. But even the mention of the Whisperers, you can see, throws her off. When Daryl brings that, we saw something, we want to go take a look out. And all of her bravado for the moment and what we normally see from Carol really kind of shrink back. That, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to be involved. And again, everybody has sort of a different take off of this. I mean, Carol is a much more interactive attacker. I mean, we've seen that, but she's also sort of pulled away from being that kind of person. So I think part of that might be not only is she reeling from the loss of Henry and everybody else from the whole beheading bit, but also, is she concerned about going back to being that person? She has done this a couple of times, seeing how far that she can go, and is there a certain concern that she's going to step back into that, Scarol role of the killer Carol? Which is always a great thing to see. And of course, interesting, we're seeing a little bit of reaction while we're just talking about Carol. Some interesting stuff there. One, obviously very awkward encounter with Ezekiel, who was hoping to maybe reconnect. Carol, not. She is done with that. If the body language reaction said anything in that scene when she returned to the boat, is that, her relationship with Ezekiel is done. With Daryl, though, we get a lot more flirting, or potential flirting, than I think that we have seen before. And I'm curious if they're trying to set up a whole kind of love triangle. Because Daryl's working on the sign language. We see he's got the American Sign Language book in his back pocket there. Setting up a new little relationship, potentially. Or is that friendship? So are we going to get sort of a little love triangle happening around Daryl and such? Just sort of curious. They're implying certain things, and I love the two of them together. Also is great. But I'm sort of curious if that's something that we're going to be seeing a little bit more of. It's kind of an odd direction, not used to seeing that. But on the other hand, always kind of like Carol and Daryl together. They've got a great relationship. Again, I kind of appreciated the fact that it wasn't a romantic one, that was more of like a deeper friendship, love, caring, almost like a sibling type kind of thing. Just because that's a good, interesting direction to go in. So if they're going to try and work the whole love triangle flirty thing, I don't know. If it's handled well, it will probably just be fine. But I don't think we need unnecessary drama added on top to everything else that's going on. Now, of course, every story needs an inciting incident. And putting this against an old Soviet satellite plummeting to Earth, that's kind of an interesting one. Satellites, yeah, they can stay orbiting for a long period of time, but the reality is even your regular satellites need small, tiny adjustments here and there in order to maintain orbit. So here was it 6-10 years after the end of the apocalypse. Yeah, some stuff isn't going to be maintained. You're going to get a little bit of space junk plummeting back down into Earth. And having it impact right inside the Whisper's territory, again, it's a great inciting incident because it is a true reason why they will need to cross the border into the Whisper's territory. Fire. Fire is extremely dangerous. It can start small, but you don't want to spread it to the rest of the forest. You don't want to engage in the crops. You don't want to cross, fire doesn't know borders. Fire doesn't know dividing territorial lines. It just goes wherever the heck that it wants. So from the idea of an inciting incident to encourage everyone to have to cross the border, to put out this fire, to take that risk, I think is a beautiful choice to do. Because again, it's just a great reason of why you need to do. And the idea of you don't know if the Whisperers are back or not. Yes, at this point, they had seen the mass. They found the camp. How long it had been there. There were still flies coming off that one skin body and so on, so it couldn't have been too particularly long. But you can't take the chance. You got to go in. You got to deal with it. You got to get out as quickly as you can. Love the old-fashioned kind of fire equipment. It's just buckets of water and chopping down trees and digging up dirt and maybe like little squirt stuff. Maybe a little more simplistic than what an actual fire encounter like this would need. But still, like I said, it worked. We got the drama. Of course, the fire is going to pull any walkers in, which is going to just complicate things a little bit more. We get some great slow-motion action shots, which was all wonderful. Now, part of me was thinking, like, if you're concerned about the Whisperers, maybe you should let them walk into the fire, because Whisperers, if they're there, aren't going to walk willingly into the fire, and at least that would sort of sort them out. The fact that they have constantly, throughout the episode, whenever they've encountered walkers now, are throwing out the lines, watch their hands. Again, it's just another beautiful change into this new world. It's not just about going walkers. It's about going after walkers where there might be humans with knives and all sorts of other weapons hiding amongst them. I just love that change, and that it's repeated throughout the episode. On the other hand, walkers aren't killed by fire. You would just then have fiery walkers that you have to go hand to hand up against. So I guess taking them out ahead of time, probably a little bit smarter. But I love that whole idea. It did add a bit of tension. We do have fighting the fires. We have dealing with the walkers. And, of course, the concern are the Whispers in this group. Have they really come back? Now, the idea, of course, is thrown out there that kind of doing the Whispers a favor. We're in their territory. We're putting out a fire. This is kind of a good thing. And I like that. I think that would be kind of an interesting way of having an encounter of like, look, I know we entered your territory, but we're kind of saving your bacon too by putting out this fire. Whether or not Alpha and the Whisperers are so concerned with croplands and such, since they're more of a hunter-gatherer type group at this point, again, is sort of a separate question. But again, the whole idea to create what's obviously going to be the new conflict coming up in the season, setting up, forcing everyone to kind of enter in the territory in an idea that is trying to do good, both protecting themselves and doing some benefits to the Whisper. Again, it's a great way to set up our encounters and have it be for a logical reason as opposed to just crossing into a border. And I think the Carol little bit there with the deer handled that perfectly right beforehand. Don't enter into the territory. We're showing that reticence, even as much as it makes Carol angry that deer could have fed so many people. Everyone is concerned about the whispers. And again, that fear and that respect, it's a great way to set up the intensity of those lines, but here giving them a reason that's more important to cross it and, again, get into what our adventures will be this season. Alright, so I've talked all about the stuff that I liked about this episode. That doesn't mean there weren't a couple of things that I didn't like quite so much. And first off, I'm looking at you, Judith. Look, the opening previously on catching up storyline, narration by Judith, like she's telling the story to, I don't know, someone on the radio, something, really didn't work. Didn't work for me. She doesn't have a voice. She doesn't have the intensity to be able to carry that off. And I know we've lost Rick, of course. That's a big thing. Carl is now gone, and Judith is kind of taking over that sort of Carl role, and that's fine. But Chandler Riggs, a lot more years under his belt. A lot more capacity to, I think, could have carried those types of lines and storyline. Just starting the episode with her previous narration, it made everything very childish and kiddish. It didn't have the same intensity or weight with it. And I know that she's just a kid, but, you know, that's a producer-director choice to have her do this, and I think that it was the wrong one. And I liked Judith last year, but not so much this episode. I thought she had some good scenes with Negan last year. I kind of liked her bringing stuff up. But here, it's almost too cute. I'm going to say it's almost too cute. Even when they had the training day bit, and everyone they're going against the walkers, and the shields separate, and she comes out with the sword and stabs and sort of steps back. Yes, she should be training. But it just didn't look right. I mean, even we had that cool shot in the very beginning of the walker coming out with the tree all through. But I mean, that was great makeup effects, by the way, with all of these sort of waterlogged walkers. Just amazing. But even then, when it gets head cut off and then we turn and it's Judith doing the whole Michonne sword bit, it didn't look right. It just didn't look right. Now, the other thing that I didn't really like is our final scene. Carol's face-off with Alpha. I mean, I get why Daryl and Carol went out to the bluffs to take a look. They'd already crossed into territory. They're already there. Concerned the Whisperers are back. So last place they saw the giant army of the dead inside this canyon. Let's go over and take a look. It's right there. So, fine. It makes sense to go and take a look. And I love them sort of continuing their conversation about getting out of town. Was it New Mexico? I think that Daryl says, by the way, love that scene. Did love that scene between Carol and Daryl, and they're joking about the bracelets and everything, and then he pulls out some bracelets. What, he just made them right there while they were talking? I think he had them around. Again, this is cute. What's in New Mexico? People that make bracelets. Again, I kind of like that idea, where they're looking to find something more. Maybe it's not just living from one fight to the next. And here, even with all of this going on, the idea of getting out of town, you know, is appealing. Now, obviously, once Alpha shows up and we get that face-off there between her and Carol, it's we're not going anywhere. I mean, Daryl's asking her to think about it, doesn't really want to go, doesn't want to leave, likes the relationship, wants to encourage her to stay, but doesn't want to go. Of course not. This little face-off, all that says is Carol's not going anywhere. Now she saw Alpha again. All the rage is back. Murder, murder, murder. However, wasn't needed. I don't think that scene was needed at all. I mean, first off, it's just kind of cheesy. But you just happen to be right there just as she comes up, so you could just have that moment. Everything else sort of worked and made sense. This is a very coincidental kind of thing for the timing to happen out. Especially if she had seen the plummeting fireball and the fire that ensued, that she didn't send up any walkers or any Whisperers, just at least to look at the satellite landing or the battle or anything like that. We didn't get that implied at all. But mostly the thing that didn't work for me is Carol should have never seen Alpha. You know, she's walking away and does that classic, like, oh, I saw something out of the corner of my eye. I looked, and she walks up, and I froze this, and I zoomed in as much as I could. And she's staring down onto that bluff, and there is no sign of Alpha there at all. There isn't anything she could have caught out of the corner of her eye because there's no one there. And when she's staring down and looking, there's still no one there. It's not until we get this first shot that we then see Alpha sort of emerge from the forest, from the trees right there. So it just always annoys me when you have this. This is not something that the character should have seen and reacted to, because there is nothing there. Put her down there. Even at that shot, when they do the shot with Carol looking down, have Alpha kind of stepping out of the trees right there, that would have worked. But they didn't do that until they did that zoom shot down into Alpha, which means Carol shouldn't have seen anything. So really, that whole thing was just done so we can get that stare down between Alpha and Carol. That Carol can see Alpha and go, "Urgh," and Alpha can look up at Carol and go, "You're in my territory." And that's going to set off the inciting incident. So much better if they just left it focused on the satellite. And just maybe having one of the Whispers kind of poke out after everybody was leaving, or the zoom back when Eugene was like, you know, I just need 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I just got to pull this technology. Then zoom back through the forest and maybe have a Whisper like looking and coming back and then going to reporting. That would have worked a little bit better. This was just too much of a dramatic setup just so we could get that image. And I think the episode was a little bit less for that. All right, just a couple of small things. One was definitely seeing a little bit, as mentioned before, of maybe flirtatiousness going on between Daryl and Connie, and of course between Carol and Daryl, creating a potential little love triangle going on there. But also a little bit of love going on between Luke and Jules, it looks like. And of course, you know, in the apocalypse, you don't have time for anything. You just tell them that you're flirting with them. And that you're flirting back. Which is, I said, well, again, always a certain concern whenever you have any relationships developing, that there is going to be, you know, that means someone is going to die, or that's going to be more of an emotional incentive for revenge and things like that. But still, it's nice. With everything they've gone through, it's always nice when you're seeing little relationships going on. And as long as it's not the uncomfortable kind of odd triangle going on between Eugene and Gabriel and Rita, that's Rosita. That's just all sorts of wrong. I think Eugene, it's like his love for Rosita has now just basically turned him into the nanny. A very, very particular time and weight-based nanny. I did like Michonne's reaction to Aaron. Again, the question of, are we the bad guys? And later on, when she gets a chance to think about it and concern about her reaction to the Whispers, knowing that fear is dangerous, which is always true. You don't know which direction things are going to go. But also followed up with the idea of course, we're the good guys, and we have to choose and act that way. The minute that we don't, then things start to fall apart. Again, it's a great way of dealing with these sort of bigger questions, sort of in a head-on kind of way. And again, also dealing with the reality of how dangerous fear can be out there, especially with the Whispers and their ability to infiltrate. Because the larger groups are, you can't know everybody, and it's hard to identify Whispers because they're always covered up in dead skin. So what do they look like? Kind of hard to know. So I think they've learned their lessons from last year. They probably know everybody in every group at this point, but still, it does show not only the dangers the Whispers can prevent from that type of infiltration, but also the danger that panic can bring to a group, and just how bad that can be. Oh, and of course, I have not yet talked about Negan. Small, quick little scene, but a wonderful establishment for where he is going forward. Great interaction with Gabriel, and I love how Negan is really feeling with his quick little discussion with Lydia that it's pooping pants putting on time again. Because everybody going to be pooping their pants right about now. So yeah, you get to see Negan is out and about a little bit more, still looked after, but again, I like his take. He's got sort of the outsider's take that really knows what's going on, and he has the complete freedom to speak clearly. And where he's starting to go here, as it looks like, is the advice giver for Gabriel. Interestingly, kind of like the whisperer into Gabriel's ear is where Negan is going to be. I hesitate to make that comparison because Negan's very clear that he wants to stay with the us and not be pushed out to the them. Which again, another brilliantly put idea. But still, the kind of idea that he is going to be the one whispering into Gabriel's ear, giving advice, and probably end up taking a much bigger, larger role going forward once the pooping stuff really starts hitting the fan. But I kind of like that kind of ideas. They're going against the whisperers, and their ally is whispering in the ear. It's a whole Negan Wormtongue type kind of thing, and I think it works good for Negan. So Connie, of course, is our deaf character. Character Kelly, her sister, kind of the translator for her. But Kelly is dealing with some issues on her own. We see in the very beginning bit, not hearing and everything. There's a concern that her hearing may be disappearing as well. But how Kelly seems to describe what's going on sounds a lot more of what's called accelerated hearing. It's when you hear really too much and you're unable to separate those different sounds from each other. As she says, it's just too much noise and it was hard to tell the difference between, especially at the beach, the external sounds and voices and who's talking to her. So, again, I mean, it's a slightly different interpretation of what her symptoms could actually be meaning, but it's kind of an interesting idea also to see that the one deaf character is losing her translator, which is good that Daryl is learning sign language, okay, stepping up into the role, but I think it's definitely going to spell out some very interesting dynamics for Kelly going forward if this continues to sort of degrade her ability to separate sounds, and of course there's always dangers that come with that. And loved Luke's little nickname for Eugene. Eugenius? I mean, it's right there. It works so perfectly. I loved hearing it. More! God, I love Luke. Oh, and of course I do want to make one little note. I got a digital poster here right now. I haven't gotten the new one yet, so I will throw this up and drop it back. I mean, they called the old one still cool too. Whisper-oriented, so it still works for us. But I know you guys expect me to always have a new poster with every new season, so it'll be here soon. All right, and real quick, just a couple of last pieces of news. First off, as I'm sure you have heard, Lauren Cohan is coming back to The Walking Dead. That's right, Maggie will return as a season regular next season, season 11. So very excited to hear about that. She was mentioned in tonight's episode. I'm sure we'll hear more about her. She might even pop up later on in the season, but for sure she will be returning next year. Just really happy to hear that. I know her show didn't do all that well. I mean, it got canceled, so it sort of allows her, opens up her schedule. I never saw it, but of course, apparently neither did anyone else. So, sad for her in that sense, but hopefully she got a good contract with Denai Guerrero leaving at the end of this season as well. It'll be cool to have a little bit more old school characters back in the show. And second, as I'm sure if you've noticed, this review dropped very early on Sunday because I have joined AMC Premiere, which means I get to watch the show a little bit earlier. I get to pre-tape these reviews and get them out to you guys as soon as the show is over. So very excited about that, which is great because on Sunday nights we also have the return of season 4 of Mr. Robot. So instead of a very late night for me, I get to get this set up for you guys and then dive into Mr. Robot on Sunday night. So that's the way things are looking going forward. So thank you guys so much for joining me with this review. Very excited about this season. Cannot wait to see what else is coming up. So if you enjoyed it, as always, please go ahead, hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, and comments, just throw those down in the section below. What do you guys think of this episode? Did Judith annoy you too? Are you fine with her? Are you excited about the Whisperers coming back? Let me know your thoughts. Throw those down in the section below. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes. Please subscribe. Got a whole season coming up, plus Mr. Robot and November 12th. The Mandalorian. So excited. Anyway, so won't miss any of those reviews. If you're a subscriber, do that by clicking this button right here. And we'll go ahead and throw up a couple of our latest reviews right here for you to check out. So, that's going to be it for me. I'm D, And I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.